Hello everyone, to those who love the mysterious, to those who are searching for answers in the deep, dark corners of history and faith. 3 days of darkness will cover humanity. Fire from the sky will descend. Those unprepared will be destroyed. Do you believe in prophecies? If I told you that a woman who lived more than 100 years ago accurately predicted many world events, and what she predicted for 2025 might send chills down your spine, would you dare to listen further? Marie Julie Jahenny, a French mystic, left behind prophecies that stunned researchers. But what is even more terrifying is that these predictions seem to be coming true. Will 2025 be a rebirth or a nightmare for humanity? Join me as we decode these mysteries in today's video. If you are captivated by this story, please click like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on the next exciting journey with me. We will dive deep into the life of Marie, into every moment of her sacred mission, and into every prophecy that made the world tremble. Marie Julie Jahenny is not a name you often hear in Sunday sermons at church or in the thick history books on the shelves of great libraries. She is not a saint officially canonized by the church, nor is she a figure that appears in grand ceremonies with flags and fanfares. But in the world of Catholic mystics, she is an unquenchable flame, a soul chosen by God to carry his messages to humanity, messages that are both frightening and full of hope, warnings and calls for repentance. Marie was born on February 12, 1850, into a poor farming family in the village of Blin, a remote area of France, where the land was barren and life was harsh, testing the patience of mankind. Her family's house was just a small wooden shack with a thatched roof, where the cold winds blew through cracks in the walls, causing the family to huddle around a small fire each winter night. Despite their poverty, Marie's parents held a deep faith, a reverence for God passed down from generation to generation. They had no idea that their eldest daughter, a skinny child with clear eyes and sun-bleached blonde hair, would become one of the most mysterious figures in Catholic history, a woman whose legacy would capture the world's attention centuries after her death. When Marie was 3 years old, her family had to leave Blin and move to a small village named Lanfen in the northeast of France. It was a peaceful yet isolated area, with endless wheat fields interspersed with narrow paths overgrown with weeds and thorny bushes. Their new home was no better than their old one, a humble shack with cracked mud walls and a small stove that sent thick smoke rising every time her mother cooked a meager dinner of potatoes and dry bread. But it was in Lanfen, amidst the poverty and solitude of the remote countryside, that the first sign of her divine calling appeared in Marie's life. One day, when she was just a little girl, Marie accompanied her mother to the village church, a small stone building with a bell tower that had turned green with age. After the Mass, while everyone hurriedly left to return to their farm work, Marie stayed behind and knelt before the tabernacle, the place where the Blessed Sacrament is kept, drawn by an invisible force. Suddenly, she heard a soft voice speak to her heart, "Stay with me a little longer." The voice did not come from the priest, nor from her mother, nor from anyone else in the crowd who had just left the church. It was a direct invitation from Jesus Christ himself, a whisper that was gentle yet full of power, making Marie's small heart tremble with awe and reverence. From that moment on, Marie's life changed forever. She began spending hours kneeling before the tabernacle, her small hands clasped together, eyes tightly shut, as if she were speaking to an invisible yet deeply cherished friend. At first, the villagers of Llanfan thought it was merely a child's curiosity, but over time, they realized Marie was unlike anyone else among them. One neighbor recalled seeing Marie kneeling in the church late into the night, as the moonlight streamed through the stained glass, casting a soft glow on her delicate face, making her look like a little angel on earth. "I don't know what she was doing," the neighbor said, "but I felt an inexplicable sense of peace just watching her there." Who would have imagined that this little girl, raised among the windswept fields and harsh days, was destined to become a messenger of God, a woman bearing a heavy yet sacred mission to warn humanity of the dark days ahead? Marie Julie Jahenny's life was not just about peaceful moments spent with God in that humble church. In 1873, at the age of 23, a life-altering event marked the most significant turning point in her spiritual journey. She suddenly fell ill with a mysterious disease, one that doctors of the time could neither name nor diagnose. Her body weakened rapidly, her skin turned pale, her eyes sunken, and her breath so faint that her family feared death was near. Though poor, Marie's parents searched desperately for healers, even selling their small plots of land to buy medicine, but all efforts were in vain. As she lay bedridden, Marie slipped into a coma, her body growing cold, and those around her began preparing for her funeral. Yet, in those moments closest to death, a miracle unfolded, one that would open the door to Marie's divine mission. Marie later recounted that in her unconscious state, she saw the Virgin Mary appear before her. The Blessed Mother stood in a gentle aura of light, her face serene yet solemn, her eyes filled with love, but also carrying a deep sorrow. She asked Marie a question that seemed to make time stand still. "Are you willing to endure suffering as my son did on the cross?" The Virgin's voice was soft yet resounding, piercing straight into Marie's soul. Without hesitation, despite her barely audible breath, Marie answered, "I am willing, Mother." Then, the extraordinary happened. Just days later, Marie recovered in a way no one could explain, as though death itself had been pushed away by a supernatural force. The villagers of Llanfan, from her parents to her neighbors, could hardly believe their eyes when they saw Marie sitting up, her eyes bright again, and color slowly returning to her cheeks. But this was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning of a journey marked by blood, tears, and sacrifice. A journey that Marie willingly accepted, later describing herself as a victim of the cross. On March 21st, 1873, an extraordinary event marked the true beginning of her mission. While kneeling in prayer in her simple room, a modest space with earthen walls and an old wooden bed, Marie suddenly felt an intense pain in both hands. Looking down, she was astonished to see blood seeping from strange wounds, as if invisible nails had pierced through her flesh. These were the stigmata, the same wounds as those inflicted upon Jesus on the cross. Her family recalled that as blood flowed from Marie's hands, a faint scent of roses filled the room, as though heaven itself was bearing witness to her sacrifice. The fresh red drops fell onto the dry earthen floor, soaking into the dust, and for a moment, her entire family stood frozen, uncertain whether to rejoice or tremble in fear at the sacred yet mysterious event unfolding before them. But this was only the beginning of the stigmata appearing on Marie's body. In the months that followed, her sacred wounds continued to manifest in a miraculous yet agonizing sequence, as if she were reliving each stage of Christ's passion. On October 10th, 1873, she received the crown of thorns. Small lacerations appeared on her forehead, with blood flowing in streams, mirroring the torment Christ endured when he was mocked and crowned with thorns. Marie recounted that when these wounds appeared, she felt as if hundreds of invisible thorns were piercing her head. The pain was so intense that she had to bite her lips to avoid screaming. By January 1st, 1874, deep lash marks had engraved themselves on her back, stretching from her shoulders to her lower back, as if she were enduring the same brutal scourging that Jesus suffered before carrying the cross. Father David, Marie's spiritual guide, had seen the lash marks and described them. They looked like sharp, deep, and bright red cuts, appearing with an eerie precision that no human weapon could have inflicted. A chill ran down my spine as I realized Marie was enduring this solely to atone for humanity. Then, on February 20th, 1874, a unique stigmata appeared on the ring finger of Marie's right hand, a bright red circle of blood, resembling a wedding ring forged from her own suffering. Marie called it the seal of divine union and believed she had become the bride of Christ, a chosen soul to share his pain and spread his love to the world. She once told Father David, "This ring is my vow to the Lord, that I will belong to him forever, no matter how much suffering I must endure." But this stigmata was not merely a symbol of love, it was also a testament to sacrifice. On December 7th, 1874, another sacred mark emerged on her chest, a small cross and a flower inscribed with the words, "Or Avenue, Hail the Cross." Witnesses reported that when this mark appeared, a sweet fragrance emanated from Marie's body, a blend of roses, lilies, and incense, filling the tiny room with an otherworldly presence. These stigmata were not only symbols of pain, but also tangible proof of divine presence in Marie's life. Medical experts of the time, including Dr. Im Cora, a renowned professor of medicine from Clermont-Ferrand, were invited to examine these mysterious phenomena. Initially skeptical of supernatural occurrences, Dr. Cora meticulously observed Marie for months, documenting every detail of her wounds. He questioned everything. Could this be a deception? Did Marie inflict these wounds upon herself to gain attention? Yet over time, he and his colleagues had to acknowledge that what was happening to Marie defied scientific explanation. In a report preserved in the local diocese, Dr. Cora wrote, "The wounds on Marie Julie Jahenny's body show no signs of infection, do not appear naturally, and tend to bleed on Fridays, especially on Good Friday, when her pain seems to intensify. This phenomenon is beyond the reach of medical science, and I must conclude that it has a supernatural origin. It wasn't just blood. At times, a soft, sweet fragrance emanated from her wounds, leaving witnesses astounded." On All Saints' Day in 1884, Marie's family recounted that a small light, the size of a pea, emerged from a wound on her hand and lingered for about 5 minutes. The glow was not harsh, but gentle, like moonlight, enveloping the room in an inexplicable sense of peace. Father David, who often accompanied Marie in these moments, once said, "I cannot explain what is happening, but one thing is certain. Marie lives in the presence of God, and he is using her as an instrument to speak to us." These phenomena not only captured the attention of the clergy and medical community, but also made Marie the center of both devotion and controversy within the Catholic world at the time. However, Marie's life was not only filled with miracles and divine radiance. Alongside these spiritual graces, she also faced relentless attacks from dark forces, evil entities determined to hinder her mission. It was said that on pitch-black nights, when the village of Lanfen was fast asleep, Marie's small room would tremble as if shaken by an earthquake. The rosary she always carried was flung to the floor. The crucifix on her wall was violently torn down, and strange growls echoed in the air like the snarls of a wild beast. Bruises and cuts would mysteriously appear on her body, sometimes so deep that blood flowed freely. Father David once witnessed such a demonic attack and recorded it in his journal. I entered Marie's room in the dead of night after hearing strange noises. I saw her being lifted off the bed, her body covered in bruises. Her eyes remained closed, but her face showed no fear. I brought the Blessed Sacrament from the church and held it before her, and instantly everything stopped. A frigid wind swept through the room, and Marie opened her eyes, looking at me with a gentle smile. She kissed the Eucharist with the deepest reverence, as if it were her very lifeblood. These attacks were not just about causing physical harm. The devil also sought to destroy Marie's spirit, appearing in various forms to deceive her. On one occasion, he disguised himself as a charming young man, promising Marie wealth and health if she abandoned her mission. But Marie, with her divine intuition, always recognized the impostor. She once told Father David, if it were Satan, he would never understand the love of the Sacred Heart. All I need to do is ask him to show respect for the Sacred Heart, and he will vanish immediately. And indeed, every time Marie faced the devil, all she had to do was pray or raise the Holy Cross, and the darkness would instantly disappear. Her absolute loyalty to God helped Marie overcome these terrifying trials, making her a symbol of the battle between light and darkness, between faith and despair. However, what truly made Marie Julie Jahenny stand out was not just the stigmata or her battles with demons, but her remarkable prophetic ability. She was blessed with the gift of seeing the future, visions so terrifyingly detailed that it felt as if she was standing in the midst of these events, even though they occurred decades or even centuries after her time. One of her first recorded prophecies was on September 20th, 1877, when she warned, France is the firstborn child of the Church, endowed with many blessings, but they have turned their back on God. The indifference of mothers toward their children will be the first sign of sin. This statement, which seemed vague and incomprehensible to people of her time, only became clear decades later when France and many European countries legalized abortion in the 1960s, making its true meaning apparent. Marie foresaw a world where life was despised, where people lost their faith in God and plunged into sin, a world she called the era of decay. Her prophecies went beyond vague warnings of moral decline. She made specific predictions that were so chillingly detailed they sent shivers down the spines of listeners. On December 17th, 1881, she predicted a great disaster would strike France, setting off a chain of calamities around the world. She said, "On that day, France will tremble, and its sins will be exposed before God. This will be the beginning of the punishment." Although there is no exact historical record of a specific event on that day, many researchers believe this was a warning about the moral decay that would lead to terrible consequences such as war, disease, and natural disasters. Marie once told Father David, "God gave France the mission to protect society from oppression and heresy, but because they turned their back on his blessings, France will face the punishment first." She predicted that Paris would be consumed by flames, Marseille would sink beneath massive waves, and many other cities would be destroyed by earthquakes. People will think that all is lost, with nothing but death and gunfire echoing everywhere. She described with a trembling but certain voice, as if she were witnessing the scene right before her eyes. Over a century later, Marie again drew the world's attention when she spoke of a specific event no one at the time could have imagined: the Paris 2024 Olympics. She warned, "The opening ceremony will contain elements that offend the faith, and France will bear the first consequences." Looking back, on July 26, 2024, the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics caused an uproar worldwide with controversial images. A scantily dressed queen stepped onto the stage. A nude singer reenacted Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper provocatively, and at the closing ceremony, an image of a headless goddess with broken wings appeared hauntingly in the Paris sky. Many Catholics worldwide criticized this, calling it an open offense to God and their faith. If Marie's words were true, could this be what she saw in her prophetic dreams over a century ago? Is France, as she predicted, bringing upon itself God's wrath for these actions? Yet Marie's prophecies did not only speak of punishment and destruction. She also described a period of darkness lasting 3 days, an event she called the 3 days of darkness, when the earth would be engulfed in total darkness. She tearfully recounted, "The sky will be as red as blood. Thunder will roar everywhere, and massive waves will flood the continents, sweeping everything away. 3/4 of the population will be destroyed, and France alone will lose half its population. During those 3 days, no one must open the windows or look outside, for anyone who does will die instantly." She emphasized that this is the moment when the powers of hell will be unleashed, when demons appear in their most hideous forms to spread terror. But Marie also mentioned that those faithful to God will be protected by holy candles, the only light that does not extinguish in the absolute darkness. Those who kneel before the cross and the image of the Virgin Mary, praying with sincere devotion, will be saved, she said. The holy candles will burn brightly, even as everything else in the house shakes and collapses. But in the house of the wicked, no candle can be lit. It sounds like a horror story from the book of Revelation, but Marie did not say this to frighten us or spread unnecessary fear. She affirmed that this is not the apocalypse, but rather a necessary cleansing to awaken humanity and bring them back to God. She said, "After 3 days of darkness, those who survive will have to learn to live with a stronger faith, closer to God. They will be the seeds of a new world. And after the darkness, light will return, brighter than ever." One of Marie Julie Jahenny's lesser-mentioned but significant prophecies is the warning about the wave of sin that will flood the world before the 3 days of darkness occur. In the document, she said, "Evil will spread to the point where even the righteous souls will weaken and fall into sin." This is not a specific event that will occur on a certain day, but a phase she sees as a precursor to greater punishments. If we link this to 2025, we may see a troubling coincidence when looking at the state of the world today. Just think, less than a month after the new year began, what upheavals have we witnessed in the past few weeks? Geopolitical conflicts continue to escalate in many parts of the world, from the Middle East to Eastern Europe. Reports of natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, and unusual heat waves are appearing frequently in the news. But what is even more concerning is the moral decline that many people are sensing, the rise of violence, the indifference to traditional values, and a society seemingly chasing materialism more than ever. Is this the wave of sin Marie warned about? If so, then 2025 may be the time when this wave reaches its peak, forcing God to intervene. The first step in the cleansing process, she predicted. Another prophecy of Marie regarding 2025 lies in the promise that even though the world falls into darkness, there will be righteous souls rising to lead humanity. In the document, she said, "Those who survive the dark period will have to learn to live with a stronger faith, closer to God." Although the 3 days of darkness, the largest event in her prophecies, has not yet occurred, we can view 2025 as a preparatory phase where the seeds of faith begin to sprout amid the storm. Look at the current context. In the early months of 2025, many religious movements are rising around the world, from collective prayers in Europe to new missionary groups in Africa and Asia. Young people, once considered a generation detached from faith, are starting to return to spiritual values, organizing gatherings to pray for peace and healing. Could this be a sign of the righteous souls Marie mentioned? If so, then 2025 will not only be a year of trials, but also the year when the first rays of hope begin to emerge. She emphasized that these people will be the survivors, those who maintain their faith even as they are tempted by the wave of sin around them. Perhaps right now, within our own communities, those people are quietly preparing for a greater role in the future. Further analysis shows that Marie also links this rise with the image of the holy candles, the only light in the darkness. She said that during the dark period, the holy candles will not go out, even as everything shakes and collapses. If 2025 is the beginning of this era, we can expect to see symbols of faith, such as prayer, the Eucharist, or acts of sacrifice, become more important than ever. This raises the question, will we, those hearing this story, be ready to become one of those righteous souls? Marie not only predicted, but also called for action, an invitation that 2025 may be the time for us to respond. Marie predicted that a holy king would appear, bringing a new reign of God on earth. She described, "He will not only rule a country, but the entire world. After the disasters, humanity will return to simplicity and sincere faith. Sects will harmonize, people will unite in reverence for God, and the earth will enter a glorious era of peace." She did not specify who this holy king was, but she believed that he would appear alongside a heavenly pope, who would lead the church into a period of great prosperity before the Antichrist arose to test humanity one final time. Are we approaching that moment? Or are these merely the mystical dreams of a nun from centuries ago? Prophecies whose meanings remain beyond our grasp. The life of Marie Julie Jahenny was not just about prophecies or mysterious stigmata, it was also a story of a resilient soul, a woman who chose the path of sacrifice to save souls, even at the cost of years of suffering and loneliness. In one of her ecstatic visions, she once told Father David, "I accept suffering to atone for the sins of humanity. If my pain can save even a single soul from the fires of hell, I would endure it 1,000 times more." These words were not just a statement, but the guiding principle of her entire life. Marie did not seek fame or recognition. She lived in quiet solitude in her small room in Lanfin, praying daily, bearing the wounds on her body and enduring attacks from demons, all to fulfill the mission entrusted to her by God. Then, on March 4th, 1941, Marie Julie Jahenny passed away in poverty and silence, just as she had lived her entire life. She departed at the age of 91, her body frail, but her eyes still shining with faith. Before closing her eyes for the last time, she made a peculiar request that a sacred chalice be buried with her. She believed that her heart would continue beating underground, a final miracle to prove her undying love for God. It is said that in her final days, Marie often gazed at the sky through a small window, whispering, "Lord, I have done everything you asked. Now please let me rest in your love." One day, when her tomb is unearthed, what will we find? A heart still beating as she prophesied, or merely words yet to be fulfilled, waiting for their time in the future? Thus, beyond major prophecies, such as the disaster of 1881, the 2024 Paris Olympics, and the 3 Days of Darkness, Marie Julie Jahenny also left predictions for the year 2025. Though without specific dates, they can still be applied to our present time. These include a peak of sinfulness, the rise of the righteous souls, the fall of the blasphemers, and preparations for the new reign of God. These are not merely predictions, but a call for us to reflect, strengthen our faith, and be ready for what is to come. Today, as we look back on Marie Julie Jahenny's life, what lingers most deeply is not just the terrifying prophecies or the supernatural miracles that stunned both the medical field and the church. It is the lesson of unwavering faith, selfless sacrifice, and relentless hope, even in the darkest moments. Marie was not just a prophet, she was a living testament to God's love, a woman who dedicated her life to reminding us that even in the world's darkest hours, the light of faith will always shine. If you feel moved by this story, leave a comment below and share your thoughts. What do you think about Marie's prophecies? Are they becoming a reality in today's world? I'd love to hear your opinions, as your reflections will make this story even richer and more meaningful. And if you want to continue exploring the mysteries of history and faith, uncovering the stories of figures like Marie Julie Jahenny, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Our channel is not just about storytelling. It is a place for us to reflect, ask questions, and seek deeper meaning in life. Support me by sharing this video with friends who love mysteries, so they too can embark on this emotional journey. There are still many stories to tell, many secrets to uncover, and I hope you will always be with me on this path. See you in the next video. Another story, another mystery, and another journey await us. Thank you for listening, and may you have a peaceful day in the love of God.